In this video, we're talking all about photography and more importantly, what the difference is between tourist photography and professional photography. So let's get right into it. Now, typically when you go to a new city, a new country, you go somewhere new, there's going to be tourists. And with tourists comes tourist photography. And typically they just walk up to a landmark without thinking about anything, hold up their phone and just tap a photo. And that is about as far as it goes. But if you are a tourist and you do want to step up your photography game, but you're not a photographer, there's a few things that really separate amateurs to professionals. Now, the first thing that a professional would do as opposed to an amateur photographer is look for new and interesting perspectives and angles. So rather than just going to a landmark where everybody else is taking photos and taking a photo at eye level, a professional photographer will think more about perspectives and angles. So rather than shooting at eye level, a professional photographer will get low to the ground, or they'll get nice and high. Or rather than going where everybody else is going, they'll go to a new location, somewhere where probably no one else has thought to go to, and take the photo from that perspective. This way, the photo is going to stand out simply because it's different from everything else that exists. The main point is new perspectives and interesting angles make for a more interesting and more professional photo. And the second thing that a professional photographer would do is look for layers. So a tourist photographer will just grab their phone and they'll take the photo without thinking about it too much. But a professional will break the landscape down into different layers. So you'll have your foreground, you'll have the subject, and you'll have the background. So a professional photographer might look for objects in the foreground to shoot through to add depth to the photo, or look for a really interesting and quirky background. So breaking your landscape down into foreground, middle, background, having these different layers is another step closer from amateur to professional photographer. The third difference is the use of compositional techniques like the rule of thirds. The rule of thirds is a really popular and really commonly used photography technique that is used to compose your image. Now, the rule of thirds is basically using a grid to place objects in your photo. So draw two lines down the vertical axis of your camera and draw two lines across the horizontal axis of your camera. Now, this means we should have 4 different lines and 9 boxes. In order to obey the rule of thirds, you want to place a subject on one of these lines. So if you're taking a picture of a landmark, for example, then you want to place the landmark on one of the vertical axis and place the horizon on the horizontal axis, that's the bottom or the top axis. Following this really simple compositional technique will instantly make your photos look more professional, and this is one more thing that a pro photographer will use rather than a tourist or amateur photographer. Automatic v manual mode. Automatic mode is the go-to mode for most tourist photographers because most tourist photographers will not know how to control the aperture, ISO, white balance, and all of these other manual controls that can take your photo to the next level. So a professional photographer will take their camera out of automatic mode into manual mode. Now, this basically means you can adjust everything manually, meaning you can manipulate the image however you like. So if we start with the shutter speed, if you pull the shutter speed down to 1/30 seconds, then you're going to keep your shutter open for 30 seconds. Meaning all the movement within the frame is going to blend in together and create a really awesome long exposure effect that you couldn't do in an automatic mode. Adjusting your aperture will either increase or decrease the focus plane in your image, and this basically means you can have more or less in focus. So if you're using loads of different layers within your image, if you have a low aperture of around f1.8, then the foreground will be blurry, the background will be blurry, and the space in the middle will be in focus. That's kind of similar to this shot. This shot, the one that you're looking at right now, is shot at a low aperture. This, my hand should be blurry, and the background is also blurry, but I'm in focus. If you're using an automatic camera, then you're not going to be able to make the most of these really powerful settings. And this is why photos taken by pro photographers always look so much better. They've maximized the settings in their camera. They've taken their camera and taken it to the absolute furthest that this camera can go to. And then lastly, when it comes to editing your photo, a pro photographer will always take the photo to the next level in the edit. An amateur or tourist photographer might just leave the photo completely ungraded or use an Instagram or Facebook filter to take their photo to the slight next level. But a professional photographer will shoot in RAW as opposed to JPEG, and RAW gives you much more color information in the edit. So when you shoot in RAW and you drop your photo into Lightroom or Photoshop, You can pull down the highlights, you can increase the shadows, you can add some contrast, some saturation, and you can use these really professional and really powerful tools with inside Lightroom or Photoshop or another photo editor to really take your photo to the next level. And that is why professional photos always look a million times better than amateur photos, because even if you ignore all of the other settings, an ungraded photo will always look nowhere near as good as a graded photo. You can really take the image to the next level with proper color correction. So there you go. If you're going to a new city or a new country and you're going to be a tourist, don't settle for tourist photography. Take your DSLR, take some incredible photos, think outside the box and edit some really awesome photos. So if you enjoyed watching this video, or if you feel like you learnt anything, then please do let me know in that comment section below. And don't forget to subscribe, check out the previous video, and I will see you tomorrow for another brand new video. Thank you for watching.